11 o'clock. Wow. Late cast. Late cast. Right. Let's get that out. Right. Since nobody is here yet, I didn't take this opportunity. I wanted to go over how's it true. How's it true? I had made a statement on a Star Wars Battlefront 3 thing, and I have to make this clear that, he runs Star Wars gaming site, and he covered games I didn't like and stuff like that. This wasn't directed at me, but kind of was, and other people and stuff. And this guy said that Star Wars isn't all about Jedi and Sith and everything. We need, boots on the ground and stuff like that. And I said, bullshit. I said, bullshit. Don't flap your gums off and try to represent the whole Star Wars community. People expect to see Force users and stuff like that in these games and stuff like that. And a guy said, it's oddly aggressive there. And the thing is, I was using a persona there. I shouldn't have exactly what I said the way I did. But the thing is, he covers one sucky game, that's for damn sure. But how Star Wars do stuff and how I would do it is a lot different. I'd make them a lot better than they are today. I'd make Star Wars a lot better. But anyways, a lot of people don't understand what I was saying, and a couple people took it the wrong way. So anyways, I'm going to move on. Let's see here. Area 51, people are getting cancer there. I said that was going to happen because of the craft, the ET craft that is there. That's going to happen. When you deal with ET craft or re-engineered craft, we're dealing with energy that is also nuclear-like, but it's beyond nuclear. And our bodies, our physical bodies, cannot handle it, cannot cope with it.
In a News Nation exclusive, we gather a group of veterans in the Nevada desert who all believe they were exposed to radiation during classified missions near Area 51 in the mid-'80s to early '90s. Their work was so top secret, the Department of Defense still won't acknowledge their service in the desert. And they say that's a big problem. News Nation's Natasha Zuvas was the first to break the story and went to the Las Vegas desert as these veterans are getting sick and pleading for the government to help.
Yeah.
They keep us classified to protect themselves.
A group of Air Force veterans and a DoD contractor say they have been sickened, even disfigured, after being stationed in the desert in the mid-'80s to early '90s.
Did you have any idea what you were being exposed to?
None. None of us knew.
These veterans say they served at the Nevada Test and Training Range, which encompasses the infamous Area 51, a remote spot that hosted nuclear testing both underground and atmospheric.
This, just to be clear, this is another reason why the government does not want UFOs out of the many reasons not to have UFOs and stuff like that declassified, because they're owe billions of dollars to people, or at least hundreds of millions, I'd say billions, to workers that were there and got infected and have cancer. This is just a few out of dozens upon dozens more.
Since the 1950s, their work so secret there would be no record that the men ever served in the windswept desert.
It was the technology behind it. That's what we were there to make sure nobody got.
They still can't talk about most of their work on the range, but the one mission they can now disclose, guarding the F-117 Nighthawk, America's first stealth bomber.
We ended the Cold War, truly.
Oh, wow.
The story begins with a reunion barbecue back in 2016 at veteran Dave Creet's Las Vegas home. Air Force buddies who hadn't seen each other in decades make a startling discovery.
So I asked the guys, we're just sitting around drinking beers. I said, you guys, I got this lump on my back. And I don't know, has anybody else got that?
I said, yeah, I had one of those. I had it removed. It was the size of a grapefruit.
Six out of the 8 vets had benign tumors called lipomas. The 7th said, I don't have any, but my son was born with one.
It just kind of confirmed it. There's an issue. Where we were, that's the one common denominator, is we were all there.
A DoD contractor who worked at the base at the same time as these vets sickened.
Daddy took his teeth out first because they had to scrape out a lot of cancer.
They had to scrape out a lot of cancer.
2 cancers, 80% of his tongue removed along with his vocal cords, all of his teeth. He lives on a feeding tube. The veterans tell News Nation their medical claims are being denied by Veterans Affairs. The work so top secret, their records are what's called data masked, as if they were never there.
It's like a kick in the gut. It's just a matter of betrayal.
After learning of the serious health conditions his Air Force brothers were suffering from, Dave did some research on the Nevada test site. Hundreds of nuclear weapons tests were conducted in the area from the 50s until the early 90s. In the 1970s, the government began exploring the idea of building a military installation there to house classified projects. A 1975 Department of Defense environmental report of the area acknowledges nuclear contamination, depleted uranium, beryllium, and plutonium present before the men were sent by the government to the range. But the report says, quote, discontinuing the work done.
To tell you truthfully, the CIA that also wanted to use a lot of these guys as guinea pigs in the desert to test them, use them as guinea pigs and see what the radiological fallout would be from the nuclear testing. So they were used as guinea pigs as well for those reasons, not just...
Would be against the national interest.
It's one thing to be ignorant, or to be naive, to not know, but they've understood for a long time.
Dave's discoveries led him to create the Invisible Enemy, an advocacy group where he says he's connected with more than 1,000 veterans who served at the Nevada test site. Hundreds of them report being sick.
We were in the dirt all the time. I can recall the times where when we'd perspire, that our uniforms would turn kind of a yellowish orange.
Our government knew that area was contaminated. So knowing that, and they willfully put us there, that's given somebody a death sentence.
We did something important. We did good work. We changed things. We don't deserve being ignored by saying we don't exist.
Elizabeth, after the DoD had no comment and the Air Force said they don't have information available for that time frame, News Nation went to the VA. And the VA told us there's no presumption of exposure for these veterans who served at the range. These vets will need to be evaluated on a case-by-case basis to prove their illness is related to their service. Of course, the vets tell us this is difficult.
They knew what was going to happen, the government, the Air Force, and these contracting companies that work out of there at Lockheed Martin and stuff like that, Skunk Works, and stuff. They all knew. They knew. That's bullshit. I know that. I knew that. I knew that. So, I mean, saying that they don't, that pisses me off. I mean, anyways.
When their data is masked. And time is of the essence, Elizabeth. More than 400 names are already on this memorial list. On Saturday night, we are delving deeper into the ripple effects, the families who are also getting sick. One daughter is exclusively giving News Nation the photographs and the documents her dying mother worked to declassify after her mom said she knew she was exposed. That's Saturday, 7 p.m. Eastern on News Nation. Elizabeth.
Thanks so much for watching. Go
leave a like. This News Nation, give them a like. Go check them out for UFO stuff like this. So, I just reported this stuff. So, I want this information out there as well. I have to put this disclaimer out in case they copyright strike me because they've done it before and taken down my video. Anyways, that's what I'm doing. I put out these reports and everything. Let me see. It's Elizondo here. Let's because this is the second one. And I do want to apologize for coming on late. I had to fix pizza, homemade pizza and stuff like that. That took over an hour. So that's why I'm late. Let's go back here. He's just going after Elizondo. It's ridiculous.
All right, welcome to episode 6 of the Dr. Stephen Greer Show. I'm Michael Mazzola. I'm a filmmaker who frequently collaborates with Dr. Greer. Dr. Greer, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Michael, for doing this with us. I appreciate your help.
I gotta put our disclaimer here. I'm reporting, putting out news. This is transformative, freedom of the press. I'm putting out my own experiences, what I think, what I may not know about certain things. So, let's move forward.
Thank you. The title of this episode is Catastrophic Disclosure. What does it mean? What I always thought it meant was disclosure that results in the complete loss of faith in our institutions, because it's uncontrolled disclosure. It's disclosure that is full and unrelenting, and all the crimes are put out on the table, and it's why they're trying to give us controlled disclosure to avoid catastrophic disclosure. So what is catastrophic disclosure, and for whom is it catastrophic?
Well, the term was first used by some special forces guys who were moving forward the last 2 years to come forward with a great deal of that kind of information, evidence, crash retrieval of ET crap, all of it.
Not BT.
And they were told by some people in the intelligence community, well, that would be catastrophic disclosure to do that. And I actually think that's a type of gaslighting of whistleblowers. And so what I'm calling catastrophic disclosure is what we're on the verge of if we're not careful. And let me go back a few months when I was talking to some folks after the current president was elected. And one of the discussions was that if this comes in a way that has been planned for decades, that it would be catastrophic, that it would be much worse than COVID, much worse than 9/11. And that's what I'm calling catastrophic disclosure. It's not the release of the evidence and information that almost all Americans sense at this point is out there. I mean, more people believe that we've been visited and the government's been hiding things for decades than have voted for any president in modern times. I mean, it's up in the 60% plus range. So, I mean, even the Reagan landslide didn't have those sort of numbers, and very few members of Congress have those sort of numbers. So what it really is, and this is, I think what happens when you have people who are embedded in government who try to keep putting speed bumps in the way of this information coming out, and with it, the technologies, is that they keep trying to say, oh, you know, it's just too much and the people can't handle it. That's not true. The people would love it. Here's who can't handle it: is the permanent bureaucracy of corrupt interest, both in the military-industrial complex, but more importantly, the financial complex. The technologies, even the energy, zero-point quantum vacuum technologies, can't come out because you've got hundreds of trillions of dollars in invested interest in commodities and oil. It should have come out 100 years ago. That's why we did our film, The Lost Century, to illustrate this. What is really catastrophic is this. There's Tesla, too. Or, which is what's afoot, and we'll talk about this, is that it comes out exactly the way they've been planning for 70 years, since the 1950s, where it comes out as an existential threat to humanity, that there are these forces out there. They're calling them NHI now, which is, of course, you know, the pop culture intelligence term that got concocted for reasons we've already discussed. It's basically a cover-up term. But that it comes out and they present it as a threat to national security and a threat to the human species.
Well, some are.
And that is exactly what catastrophic disclosure is. Catastrophic disclosure is not acknowledging that we're not alone in the universe and that they've been here and that we have downed their craft and reverse engineered them, or even that we have ones of our own that we have built. That would be what most people are already beginning to say, even in Congress. The catastrophic part of it is, and this is what's going on, whistleblowers, members of Congress, people in the administration being gaslit by very slick counterintelligence operators who present it as a threat, and on top of it say repeatedly, and this is what Luis Elizondo recently repeated, I believe, on Sean Ryan's show, the show I've been on in the past, where he basically said, look, we don't have anything like this, right? We don't have any craft flying around that could explain this.
It's either Russian, Chinese, or ours. And it's not ours. We've already said it's not ours. We don't have that capability. And we damn sure hope it's not Russian or Chinese, because then we're really screwed.
Totally a lie. Now, why?
You're not telling all the truth either. They're saying that all of what you're saying is the truth, and it's not. It's not. There's good and bad ETs out there. I'm not going to have this BS of you or anybody else doing that. You know, I'm not going to allow that. I don't care what you or anybody says. I don't. There are ETs that are abducting humans as we speak, and also creating another species, a hybrid species, and stuff like that. They're not humans dressing up as little men, little gray people, okay, as midgets, okay, and doing this. That's very delusional. That's fucking delusional. Very delusional. Now, I mean, Lou Elizondo has said he does not know everything himself, that there are some that are a threat to us. There are good ones and there are bad ones, just like humans. So I'm not going to have you go off like that. Why would that lie be so
valuable? I mean, think about this, everybody, for a minute. Why would something that has already been proven, if you go to the Disclosure Project Intelligence Archive, dpiarchive.com, you'll see, 120 plus crash retrievals, but you'll also see witnesses, military and corporate witnesses to these man-made UFOs. And so much so that people, like the recent whistleblower, Jake Barber, has said repeatedly to us, they are indistinguishable from the actual NHI craft or ET craft. The technology is that advanced. In what Lockheed, Skunk Works, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, and so a few other big contractors have that build these things. We also know they're being built apparently in Russia and most likely China by the same consortium, by the way. This is a global consortium, criminal enterprise. So I think that the catastrophic disclosure is that hiding that keeps the technologies that would benefit the Earth away, because they say, well, we don't know how they operate. We don't know what zero-point energy is. Nothing like that's ever been built. Total fabricated, bold-faced lies. That leaves us dependent as a civilization on an 1800s energy paradigm for our energy system, which not only it requires most of the population of the world to be impoverished to some degree, but also under control of a centralized system. So it's actually a type of, I call it petro-slavery, where the whole planet is dependent on.
It is because they want to make money off of this on otherworldly technologies. They want to keep it for themselves, keep that secret. They want to keep using oil and charging for oil, making money off of oil and electricity. And the extraterrestrial energy would totally bankrupt the world economy, though it's needed, and stuff like that should be free. Honestly, it should. Nobody should be controlling these technologies that, by view, all humans should have. Electricity and energy and stuff like that, and that's what extraterrestrial NHI technology could do. So
the fossil fuel and the centralized power grid to have their very existence, to even live as we live as a modern society. That would all change if these technologies came out. It would be the ultimate liberation of all people in all strata of societies, both in the United States and the developed countries and the so-called first world, but in the developing world even more so. But all of us would be liberated. So who is that catastrophic for? Not the 99.99% of the population that are not attached to the conventional energy generating system. Okay, on planet Earth, 8 billion people. Go look at how many people are directly attached to that industry. Now, it's a very profitable one. It has hundreds of trillions of dollars in assets and commodities that are traded in financial markets. Chicago Board of Trade and others, commodity, that's hundreds of trillions of dollars a year right there in trading, generating commissions. So there's a whole financial issue here. But in terms of looking at the long-term fortunes of humanity, withholding this information and saying that we don't have these technologies is itself a type of continuation of human global enslavement to the current system. Now, let's then add in one other thing. They have portfolios that I know for a fact they go in and show people in national security circles. Let's say that you're the president or your Senate Intelligence Committee, and there are folks who will come in with a portfolio showing very gruesome alleged NHI craft or NHI beings doing things to humans, abductions, mutilations, blowing up the...
What they're doing to animals is laser precision. It's not other animals doing it. It's not hunters doing it. You know it has to be human or ET. And the thing is, we work together with stuff. And there is also this theory also of a super soldier type thing where how cows can also heal rapidly, and they want to put that technology into humans and
vivisections, cutting people open alive, feeding babies to spider-like aliens, right out of a horror movie. Now, aside from the fact a lot of it's made up out of whole cloth, the parts that are real, and there are real victims of abductions. I was almost abducted in 1994. Those are being done by humans masquerading as aliens. But they're also
that's complete bullshit, Greer. That's complete bullshit. It's all like midgets. That's bullshit.
So using these technologies to do it. They're using craft that look like an alien ship. They're using technologies that are very advanced electronics, like supercharged Havana syndrome type energy system.
Now, could we be working together and stuff like that? Yes, we do. But the thing is, it's very real. So,
weapons that affect awareness and consciousness and all sorts of things. So those are being used by people who are masquerading as aliens and then convincing officials that there's this threat. But that...
How stupid is that? You dress up as... They have a bunch of midget army. They have a midget army. You know how stupid that sounds? A midget army to abduct humans and stuff like that would be more believable. They're 6 foot, 5 foot, 7, 6 foot something ETs or whatever. And there are some tall ones in this as well. There are some ETs that have looked human as well, but those are ETs. So, I mean, now you could say, we could go to this part where ETs can insert memories and stuff like that. So you got that argument there. They could do that. But no.
Falls apart if there's an honest disclosure. And that is that there are three things going on. There's the extraterrestrial vehicles and people. There's the man-made craft and man-made alien phenomenon. And then there's the extra-dimensional or interdimensional beings that they deliberately mix up with both the extraterrestrial and the man-made. Some of the extra-dimensional entities are actually able to be brought into this dimension through very advanced electromagnetic systems. And I know physicists and engineers who have done this. It sounds like something out of Stranger Things because it is like that. That's where they got the idea from the movie, the whole Montauk experiments and all that on Long Island, back on the eastern part of the far eastern edge of Long Island. So when you begin to analyze this, the denial that we have these technologies opens up only one conclusion for all this other phenomenon. It's all got to be non-human. It's all got to be done by the aliens. So by denying that we have these technologies, we have these craft, it sets everyone up for coming to one logical conclusion. People have been abducted. There have been mutilations of cattle. All of that, therefore, goes through that open door, even though it's a completely false narrative. That's why repeatedly these counterintelligence officials go around and say, we don't have anything like this. There's no way. Because as soon as they acknowledge we do, it's not.
He never said that there wasn't evidence of this, dude, Greer. He did not ever say that. You say that he didn't. He said he didn't know. There's a difference.
Hard to then make the connection from the whistleblowers we have to say, oh, well, these have been used in these counterintelligence operations, psychological warfare, psyops. And that's then, of course, inescapable that people realize, well, gee, what part of this is actually non-human intelligence or extraterrestrial, and what part of it has been masquerading? No one's asking that question, and most people in Congress and in the bureaucracy or White House and National Security,
they know. I mean, they know. I mean, they're not going to believe everything these people tell them. I mean, I hope not. Me, I just go by what I know and what I've seen. And I don't care what anybody else says. I don't. This is the thing, you go by all of what you see and all of what you know. You only go by half of what you hear. That's the military reasoning.
security don't know enough about the issue yet to come to that kind of assessment, which is why it's so important that we keep putting this information in front of them. But every time that happens, you have people rush in and say, oh, we couldn't possibly have something like that. And by the way, those people are not an emergency doctor like me. Those are people who have great credentials from the military industrial complex or the intelligence community. And so they're going to say, no, I mean, this, we know what this is. I was read into it. We don't have anything like this. So that is a very dangerous game being played. And that is how we have catastrophic disclosure. This information comes out, but it's all portrayed as this one thing, non-human, as a catch-all. And that the staged and faked alien terrifying events all fall under that one category falsely. That then leads to an inescapable policy decision by the Congress and the White House. And that is, we have to, and other leaders around the world, we have to unite the world to fight the aliens. We have to have this sort of dystopian of a future where it's us against them. This sort of, crazy narrative of endless war that expands to not just humans fighting each other, whether it be...
Listen, there's a lot of stuff that I agree with him. Most stuff I agree with him on. Most stuff I agree with Lil Elizondo on. This is based on my own investigations and my own experiences and stuff like that. People are going to have to find their own way and find their own reasoning and, form their own opinions and everything else. It's just so. This is, by the way, Dr. Stephen Greer's channel, Catastrophic Disclosure. Go like, watch his show, and everything else. I'm just reporting this stuff here and being transformative and putting my own experiences into this as freedom of the press. Thank you.
Russia and Ukraine or whatever it is, but that we then unite everyone against some external alien threat. And this is exactly what Werner von Braun talked about on his deathbed, and others have warned me about, and that they have the ability to stage it. So catastrophic disclosure is actually attaching very high value targets, let's call them HVTs, in terms of whistleblowers. And they come out, they provide the information, and eventually, I think in the next year or so, all the proof that we're not alone and we have these craft that are non-human. But then they are attached to people who give this false narrative, who repeatedly go up on Capitol Hill and gaslight the House Oversight Committee members or Senate Intelligence and say, yeah, but none of those are ours. Or maybe there's some from China, right? So, which is a ruse used by many people I've talked to. Well, I can't talk about what we have, but we know some other country has it, right? So if they talk about another country, it's fair game. If they talk about the United States, they're violating what they consider their non-disclosure agreement, or the agreement they made to basically gaslight the public and deceive officials and deceive the media, etc. So I think that is how we end up in a catastrophe. Catastrophic disclosure is not the information and the evidence coming out. That's what everyone, I think, is quite ready for. But a lot of these whistleblowers get convinced, slow this down. Why? So that this consolidation around a false narrative, a false flag operation can happen. That is catastrophic, because now that leads to what? It leads to the
what
world
you're saying is false too. So
not unity in peace or unity in something beautiful, a new vision of us and other civilizations in the universe doing things together, or a new world being created technologically that's sustainable and peaceful. It's uniting the world under a militaristic sort of global totalitarian system where everyone is terrified of the what's out there in space, and that's how they give up their freedoms. As Benjamin Franklin said, those who would give up their liberty for security shall have neither. And that is one of the real problems with this. The people who would like to control the populace through fear, which is the way that demagogues have done this for millennia, whether it be religious leaders.
There's another dot right there in the sky. I don't know if that's a blemish or something happened to the photo. That looked like it was in the 1960s, 70s, something like that. But
or political leaders, military leaders, the dictators, this would be the ultimate fear play, a big old fear play. And that's how you colonize people's minds, and that's how you end up in a catastrophic disclosure. So my concern is not there would be too much information and evidence disclosed. It's that there's not enough of it in the right context, and that the delay that we see happening, and this has been going on for the 35 years I've been doing this. Let's not forget, the Clinton administration was very close to disclosing all of this. They did form a team, an operation called Team Red, to penetrate those programs and get them under control. And that Team Red was completely decimated, either killed or absorbed into the illegal black projects. And I think this is something we have to be very careful of here, because we're at a point where I believe everything is poised to come out. There's growing bipartisan support in Congress for this, as you saw yesterday in the press conference with Congresswoman Luna, who I have personally briefed on this issue, and others who were there, like Mr. Burchett, people like Mr. Moskowitz, that task force originally, who I discussed this with. I think there is strong bipartisan support to get to the bottom of this. The problem is they're being advised very badly by people who swoop in and create these false narratives of threat and false narratives of we don't have anything like this. Now, there are people who've evolved on this quite a bit. For example, there was the David Fravor, who was the F-18 Hornet pilot, who chased the UFO and got the footage and all of that. You all know what that is, and we can show it. But when I first spoke to him a few years ago, he was adamant that what he had pursued absolutely had to be alien, that there's no way any human on Earth had any technology like that. And this would be a very rational assumption for someone having their first encounter with a propulsion energy system like what Lockheed Skunk Works has, or Northrop Grumman has, or Raytheon has, because they do not move in an aerodynamic form. There's no rockets, there's no jets, the infrared sensors that would pick up a heat signature, nothing. So what is making this thing move like that, right? And so it's a normal assumption for a conventional military or civilian pilot, or a rocket scientist, for example, dealing with normal propulsion, to say, well, that has to be from outer space or another non-human civilization. And that is where you make your big mistake. Now, David Fravor has looked into this and has had, I said years ago to him, that was from the Lockheed Skunk Works. He has since admitted that someone from Lockheed has confirmed to him directly that that was one of theirs. So that is very good evolution, but it takes a while. The problem is, I don't know if we have time for people to spend 2, 3, 4, 5 years wrapping their minds around this, because I think we're on a fast track.
I could believe that it was a psyop done. I can, because they always want to see how humans are going to react if there is a disclosure of ETs and stuff like that. They do this quite a bit, throughout the decades. But I want proof. No, which way or the other.
Where all this is going to come out. And if our president and our national security team and our Congress, as well as leaders around the world, really think that all of this phenomenon has to be alien or non-human, then that opens the door for exactly what that 70-year evil agenda has been, and that is to have a threat that the whole of humanity faces. So this is where catastrophic disclosure to me is. Catastrophic disclosure is a false disclosure. It's done in bits and pieces, but in a manipulated way, in a very carefully orchestrated way that ends up, in my opinion, driving policy in the 180-degree opposite direction it needs to go in. But without enough information and without enough disclosure of the facts, this is where you could come to that conclusion, just like David Fravor. It was an error, but it was a rational conclusion he, as a jet pilot for the military, made. It was a totally rational conclusion. Now, on the bright end of this, and the good side of it, is that, and I want to say this, it's a completely nonpartisan person, and it's a completely independent person, because I deal with people all over the world. This issue absolutely has to transcend the sort of ridiculousness of partisan politics. But there was a woman who was recently, I think today or last night, confirmed as Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who I think will be very friendly to this. And someone that I've known for a while, who's a friend of hers, is Amaryllis Kennedy, who is RFK Jr.'s son's wife. So RFK Jr. is the father-in-law for Amaryllis Kennedy. And Amaryllis Kennedy was a CIA undercover officer for, 6 or 8 years. She very much is aware of this subject. She's very supportive of real disclosure. She's aware of the fact that JFK and most likely Bobby Kennedy Sr. were killed over this issue, and that there are multiple issues. And you can put up on the screen the president has announced a White House from the White House.
I've been over that. One of the biggest ones was actually the mob, the CIA and Bay of Pigs not backing up the freedom fighting Cubans at the Bay of Pigs, stuff like that. And the mob did JFK and RFK a huge favor. And you don't get anything free from the mob and then attack them and go after them. They're going to kill you for that. There's CIA, there's the Pentagon involved. There's also local law enforcement that's involved in cover up. It was all over. Everyone was in on it.
Intelligence advisory group or board that Amaryllis Kennedy is on, as is Congressman Noon and others, Nunes. So what I see happening is that it's going to be sort of a, well, I won't say who said this to me, but someone very senior in the administration said this is going to be a knife fight, because over, does this come out? How does it come out? How much of it comes out? Now, on the bright end of it, I'm also hearing from people at a very senior level in the intelligence community that they're speaking of it the way we've always spoken of it, that it has to come out, but that not all the technologies come out all at once. Because I have said, if you look into our archive, what was said to President Clinton and his team 30 years ago in 94, 5, 6, was exactly what I'm saying now, is that the things that are flying around that are man-made UFOs, electrogravitic propulsion systems, electromagnetic field propulsion, those really can't come out because they're going to be figured out to be a missile delivery system. And the Earth right now is an armed camp of a bunch of tribes, call them nation states or religious entities or whatever it is, but a group of tribes that are, blowing each other up over whatever reason they can find. This is the human crisis, actually, because that consciousness still exists of violence and division, but we have more and more sophisticated weaponry, up to and including thermonuclear weapons. But now you add that into the mix. So that has to be not brought out yet. But the energy generation systems that would give us free energy for our homes, our cars, our factories, our businesses, that would grow the global economy. And one of the arguments to be made to the powerhouse, military intelligence, mainstream people here in the United States, as well as Congress and the president, is that would be a tide that would lift all ships, but it could be led by the United States. What I'm hearing is that if we don't do it, there are some big countries prepared to do it ahead of us. So even from, yes, that is imminent. I've heard that from very senior people in the intelligence community. That's all I'll say. And so do we really want to be left behind? I mean, this would be an argument for the current president and Congress. You know, you talk about being left in the dust. You know, the most important technological advances in human history since the dawn of known human history come out, and we're there still fiddling while Rome burns, right? And some other countries come out and say, see ya, wouldn't want to be ya, you know? And this is not what you want to do. So I always tell these people who brag about their America First agenda, I said, well, I got news for you. You're about to be left in the dust real fast on this, because it's a big world, and it's naive to think that other big powers around the world, whether it be China, Russia, whatever, have not studied this issue, they've had their own crash retrieval efforts. They've figured out how these technologies work. And the global organization that's been keeping this secret is fracturing, right? And so I'm just telling you this.
I would say about these technologies again is that they need to be re-engineered, made safe. These technologies cause you cancer. You can't use them.
For a fact. So the question then becomes, is the entity known as the United States of America, right? That constitutional entity, going to be relevant, or will it just simply be made irrelevant? And so that's why I think that the time is of the essence here, but we got to get it right. And what I said to several senior people in the administration and in Congress recently is that if we get this wrong, if you think the mess of COVID and the global shutdown or other problems we've had, 9/11, for example, and what happened as a consequence of that, 20 years of war that was a disaster, trillions of dollars lost, God knows how many people killed, American and people in other countries. And all it did was destabilize the world, destabilize everything further. This would be way worse. That is catastrophic disclosure, my friends. Not having the information come out in a timely manner, which would have been at least 50 or 60 years ago. I mean, I remind people that arch conservatives, like Senator Barry Goldwater, who I sat in his living room, and he said, he's this gruff guy, interesting person. I spent a whole afternoon with him. And he said, it was a goddamn mistake then and a goddamn mistake now. This was ever kept secret, and got into a rage, lather over it. And I went, yes, sir, it is. And now that was in like 90, you have to look it up in the archive, 94, 5, 6, somewhere 30 years ago. He's since passed away. But here we are. It's still secret. He felt in the 60s. He had heard about it, but wasn't read into it. It shouldn't have been kept secret. I've heard this from very old timers when I first started this program. People who are around in the 40s and 50s were telling me what a huge mistake that was. And so why are they delaying it now? It's to buy them more time for their nasty little evil, let's have our Armageddon agenda, these weird twitches. And let me put this on the table. These are sociopaths and psychopaths, full stop. I mean, these are people who just are control freaks who want the world to.
He's definitely one of these. He's a big one of
war and conflict and destruction.
Warmonger.
And that's what you're going to end up with if we have catastrophic disclosure, which I'm defining as.
Talk about Dick Cheney, guy that had made millions and millions off of war and everything, and private contractors and everything else. That's Dick Cheney right there. He's the epitome of corruption right there.
As this disclosure being manipulated in a way that leads to this unification of the world around fear and war, rather than universal peace and free energy and an advanced, really advanced civilization. So I don't think that the stakes could be higher right now, but and there are some bright spots and there are some worrisome issues here, because we know that, for example, members of the House Oversight Committee meetings I've had with them over the last few years, there will be people will come in with military credentials and say, oh no, don't listen to that. Here's what's really happening. And the next thing you know, they're reaching the assessment that there's a threat and that the aliens or something.
There is a threat too. There is a threat. Whether you like it or not all ETs are good. That's a fact. There are some that are a huge threat to us that could just abduct humans and stuff like that. Do whatever they want or attack us. They just straight out attack us. This does happen. So
scary thing. So ironically, all the people I've debriefed, hundreds and hundreds of people in the military and corporate world, contractors, who have actually dealt with the ETs directly, none of them tell a story of a reptilian or a spider-like.
Hold on just a minute. I gotta move something. By the way, I hope everyone's had a good Valentine's Day, morning, noon, night. Hope it was full of hot, passionate, and groundbreaking sexual experience for everybody that just blew the lid off of all of humanity. Now let's get back to the show.
Like creature from direct hand. None of them tell a story of being harmed or invaded. None of them tell that story. And then there are people who have been peripherally involved, who have observed these scary things and didn't know. They weren't read into the fact. It's like...
If you like it, also, if you like any things I would say, if you like any of this, please leave a comment. Please leave a like. Tell me what you think.
It's like David Fravor not being read into an electromagnetic propulsion system from Lockheed that he thought was alien. They haven't been read into the man-made program life forms that look alien but aren't, or the ones that are kind of robotic and you kick them over and their skin splits open. It's fake skin. And you see integrated circuits and fiber optics in there, right? So if you're just casually seeing this and you're not read into it, well, you're going to conclude immediately that those were a bunch of real aliens. So that kind of stagecraft, as crazy as it sounds, is real. And it's something that...
This also could lead to the argument where maybe we've made, where he could say we're using robotic ETs to do these abductions. Half wrong, half right.
Unless people who are policymakers here and around the world know that. And I'll say how serious this is. About a year and a half ago, I had a gathering with, I think there was this top 7 special forces guys in the United States. And they're being put together to be part of a pulling them out of the military, to be part of a platform, an operation. It's a highly classified special access project that's top secret, special compartmented information, SAP, that would be in charge of getting these illegally run programs and operations under proper control and supervision. And when they asked me, what is the most important evidence and technology to seize? I said, by far, the man-made craft, the systems that are simulating fake extraterrestrial events, the man-made aliens, and all the technologies that allow for that deception to take place. That is priority number one that I've given them. Way more than, and the second.
I mean, can we make those man-made aliens? Can we? Yeah, because we got from them as well. But they're using them as well. Then there's real ones. You're half wrong, half right on that.
Second one, very close second, maybe equal to it, would be liberating the captured ETs that are in underground facilities that are actual non-human that we've captured and are essentially kept as prisoners. Although I think they're called euphemistically refugees. I don't think so. They're not refugees. Yeah, that is actually what the term used. That one of the operators, contractors said, well, they're refugees. I said, yeah, well, I don't think you're a refugee if you've had your craft shot down and you've been captured and thrown into an underground facility. Right.
Dr. Greer, you mentioned that the legacy group is deeply fractured right now.
Thing is, that also makes no sense why their own kind, I mean, they'd have to worry about their own vessels being shot down with that backup come. But what doesn't make it very believable, I mean, it could happen, yeah, I've heard it has. I've heard of us capturing other beings and holding them. But at the same time, for how long? They could come over here and blow up any dirt that we have, or dump that we have, deep underground military base. They could just go right through the ground if they wanted to get it. So a lot of what he says doesn't make sense as well. Again, there's right, wrong, there's different.
And I think that most people will imagine this group as this sort of like specter-like organization, like in James Bond,
different
where they're all
countries
sitting around the table, and there's a one leader, and there's one vision, and they all go out and execute that vision.
Like the World Economic Forum.
All these tentacles acting in concert with each other. But what I've learned from you is that there's actually many competing agendas within this legacy group, and there's people who are driven by different religious ideologies. And so could you unpack that a little bit for us?
Sure. Man, I learned of this in the 90s. In fact, after we had done the first National Press Club disclosure event in 2001, I had someone from that organization say, you know, this has really moved this forward, and there's about 70% of, there's 200 or 300 people on that international committee, policy committee. That about 70% of people think this ought to come out now. Now, the problem is the other 30%, and the other 30% are ultra hardliners. They're also the more violent, psychopathic members, and they're very likely to kill their own people, right? This is why when the former CIA director Bill Colby was helping us, he had been involved in those operations way back when he was CIA director for Ford and Nixon and Ford. And he was going to get to us one of these very sophisticated zero-point or quantum vacuum energy systems, and around $50 million in some seed money to get it out to the public, because he knew we were going to open source it, put it out so the whole world would have free energy. And he thought it was time to do it. And the week he was going to meet with a member of my board, they found him floating down south of D.C. in the river. And his best friend, a full bird colonel, told me that absolutely that was a wet work. That was an targeted killing or assassination. So the extreme folks in that organization, here and abroad, are not shy about killing their own people. So
No,
there's a certain
do it all
level
the time.
of threat and intimidation that goes on. And so they're you know, the sort of
How much they
simplistic
do now
conspiracy
is a big
theories
question, but
that people have are all wrong. I mean, because it just, that's not how it operates. And sort of the strangest end of it would be the, you know, the folks who are the far fanatical religious end of it. Let me just put it that way. And I have no beef with people being spiritual or being part of an organized religion, but I'm talking about the extremists that want to have Armageddon happen. And
or
like
kill everybody else. I mean, I have no respect for those. And tell you truthfully, ETs will destroy all these stupid religions because they're based on tribal fiction and everything else. I mean, the only thing that, I mean, you got Buddhism, Taoism, which I do lean more into that stuff. And I mean, who could believe in a stupid God that lets bad things happen to other people? That's a psychopath and killer as well. Let's, you know, animal on animal violence. If I was God, I would not allow any of this bullshit to happen. I wouldn't. So I don't respect these other religions so much. The thing is, at the same time, if people are respectful to me, I'd be respectful to them. Don't force your agenda. You know, it's like what's happening in the UK, EU, and Australia, it says other countries. You've had Muslim extremists totally take over those countries and everything. It's dictatorship in the UK and in a few other countries. I don't respect how if you don't conform to their ways, they'll kill you, stone you. They have the right to stone you or enslave you or whatever. I don't respect that anyway. So.
Otto von Lichtenstein told me, we have to have a war with the alien.
I don't also respect the Christianity or Catholicism type of extremism. I don't respect any extremism, okay? I gotta put that out there. I do. But it's like, don't tread on me, I won't tread on you. Is pretty much how it should be. You know, respect me for who I am, I'll respect you. I'll stay out of your way. But if you come after my lifestyle, the way that I live, the way I talk, and whatever else, I'm going to attack you back or whatever. That's just the way that it is. You know, it's about respect.
Or at least pretend to have one, so that Christ will return, and Armageddon has to happen before Christ returns. So that is, as bizarre as that sounds,
that's not going to happen.
This is a serious group within that organization, and they are true believers. It's almost like you're like the extreme version of Al Qaeda or the Taliban or a terrorist group, but it's that extreme religiosity as opposed to spirituality. And certainly most people in religious, I mean, I've been at the Vatican, talked to very reasonable people about this. Right. And yet, there are folks in that organization that are drawn from different religious organizations that have those beliefs, that we have the only way forward for humanity is to destroy it so that we are saved in the rapture or something like that. And when I first heard that in 1994, I actually couldn't believe it, although I was very polite and didn't express my astonishment to the prince, but I was appalled that an educated person would actually believe that, number one, and number two, be setting up active plans for that. So you have that extreme faction, then you have the super...
I gotta say, I come from a Christian background, family and stuff like that. I also come from some extremist people in Christianity. I know too many extremists, and people have called me a demon saying Satan is in me and all this other stuff and everything. And it's like, you don't respect anything. And this is just for my UFO experiences, seeing angels, seeing demons, and stuff like seeing the dead people or whatever. And they're so dumb and stupid that they just do stuff like that, ETs and stuff like that, to Satan, you say Satan, Satan. It's like, shut the fuck up. I almost got many fist fights with some people over that, and that, you have these other people try to brainwash me and stuff like that. I've had lots of people try to brainwash me, and there was that almost brought me to insanity with their BS and everything. And this is, different religions will do this. They'll try to brainwash you and say that we're the only way to the afterlife, we're the only way to heaven. It's all bullshit. You don't have to even worship God to go to heaven. You don't. I've been there. I've been dead before. I've seen the other side many times. You don't have to worship any of these false religions. It's what you do here that counts. Not only the worst of the worst are to be going to hell. There's different dimensions. And heaven is also a state of mind. Where do you want to go to? Not everyone goes to this heaven or that heaven. What is your heaven? That's the way it is,
Hardliners around the energy and technology. Because as one recent whistleblower told me, who we are in the process of onboarding, he said what this is really about is the global energy sector and how that's controlled.
Yeah,
because that's what runs the entire planet, the entire post-industrial planet. And that the people who are at the top of that food chain in the financial...
And this is the reason why I said Trump is not going to disclose it. They're not going to have all these disclosures because Trump is a capitalist. He's an industrialist. And he wants to make money. If you let everything out, this puts all these stupid oil and energy companies out of commission. It bankrupts them. And it should. We should have stuff for free as well. I mean, Tesla, look what happened with Tesla. He created free energy. He got knocked off. So he had all kinds of stuff, including anti-gravity as well. So, he was ahead of everybody. Tesla was. Edison wanted him dead too. He was ahead of Edison, and he was Tesla's for free energy, and Tesla was a capitalist pig. You have capitalist pigs pretty much just want to make money off other people, enslave people. Be slaves to this stuff, and we are slaves to this. We are slaves.
System. They in no way want this to come out.
Can you imagine us going, without electricity and all this other stuff? We could do it. The tough can do it. But we are a slave to it as well. Because unless you know how to survive without electricity, as far as to make fire and stuff like that, and lo and behold, if you live in an area where you can't start a fire, you go to jail. That's not good either. So,
where the technology is acknowledged as having been figured out, because it means that over 15, 20 years, all of that is going to go the way of the horse and buggy, right? Which it should have. About the time the horse and buggy was replaced by a car, we should have had Tesla's electric car that didn't run on a battery that needed to be plugged in, but a battery that was pulling a generator, pulling energy out of the field of energy around it. Although I don't believe that was 0 point, just as a point fact, I believe he was rectifying energy from the magnetic sphere, the magnetic energy
he was pulling
constantly flowing from the sun and around the earth.
Right,
and I understand that it's a separate. You can get
like
quote
that.
free energy that way.
The atmosphere.
So, but it's different from the true 0 point trans-dimensional energy, which is but nevertheless, it would have been even today would be a massive breakthrough. By the way, when you and I went out in the desert, and that's what that system was. Remember, in the Lost Century? Go see the Lost Century, folks. We can drop a link to it here. And we went out, and there was this eccentric, brilliant. He was a medical doctor and a physicist working with this thing, and he had this generator sitting in a shack out in his backyard, making
in a chicken coop.
In a chicken coop, running his Bitcoin mining operation and some other things, running his house when he wanted to, 5,000 watts, 5 kilowatts. We saw it. And no input energy. And that was not 0 point. That was pulling energy from the magnetic field and the constant flow of electromagnetic energy that is all around the Earth and flowing huge amounts from the sun every nanosecond. And you can rectify that, meaning you can take those energy forms, rectify them into a flow of electrons. So it's electromagnetic, right? And that's what he was doing. That's what Tesla did for that car, by the way. Now, that's very different from the Floyd Sweet system that was running a car. He had a genuine quantum vacuum 0 point system. But there are many ways to have energy freedom and energy independence for the United States and the whole world.
They don't want that. They don't want that. They want to make money.
Multiplicity of technologies that need to be supported and brought out that would be completely safe to do. They don't create ionizing radiation, nuclear, or pollution, and they're not really easily adapted at all to something that's going to fly off at 300,000 miles per hour and end up being some weirdo dictator's missile delivery system. So, but this is something that the people who are the hardliners in the petrodollar energy financial system, they're as financial.
Well, the thing is also, there are checks and balances when people buy this stuff. Certain things get flagged by, say, FBI, ATF as well, with some things, and they put it together. They build stuff, it gets known, they get confiscated as well. So
fanatical about that not being disclosed, as the religious fanatics want to be sure that this issue comes out and we have an existential threat that we have to fight, so that we have some Armageddon fantasy that these guys want to see their prophecies fulfilled through. And I think that's all of these sort of the extremist end of this group kind of dominates, because look at any society. I mean, I lived in the Middle East for 3 years, and almost everyone I met, Arab, Muslim, Arab Christian, Jewish, they just wanted to live together peacefully. But you only need about 10% of people willing to hurl bombs and blow themselves up and keep that fire burning forever. So what people don't realize is that when the good people don't do anything, and what I'm encouraging people who are involved in these legacy programs, who are moderate and fundamentally good people, many of them stuck there because they were brought in at a certain age. Now they're getting middle age or older, and even past middle age, and they really want to be liberated from that. Is that I said, now you need to come forward. Which brings me to something else. Tonight there will be handed to the current president of the United States what I have drafted, 5 executive orders, specifically outlining the actions that need to be taken urgently. I know that there are 4 executive orders that I had seen drafts of coming out of during the transition period. I've clarified those and added one that was not under discussion at that time. And the one that I added, I mean, of course, these are obvious ones: whistleblower protection, both legal and physical, a full investigation, an amnesty period where there would be a period, I'm recommending no more than 6 months, where people who are involved in those programs can come forward, and if they completely come clean and disclose everything, holding back nothing, then they have they're immunized from prosecution for everything that may have happened in the past, because that gives a pathway out for these folks, and etc. Now, the one that I think is the most important one has to do with what I said a few moments ago, and that is a law enforcement operation, both CONUS and OCONUS, continental United States, meaning in the United States, and OCONUS is outside continental United States, that would go to all these black sites that we've identified, and corporate and quasi-governmental sites that are doing the most heinous crimes, abductions, targeting ET craft and downing them. That needs to be stood down immediately.
Again, he's half right, half wrong about this. I mean, Jesus Christ, man.
Trafficking of people to be used in human experiments, which is real, that is going on, et cetera, and so on. That gets...
Yeah, except for ETs are doing it as well. That's the thing.
Fixed. And that they get stood down. And another executive order was that there was an immediate order that all offensive weapons be stood down and stopped that are targeting non-human craft, because that is a reckless and dangerous activity not authorized by the president or the Congress. This has been going on just on its own without authorization, and that is something that I very bluntly says imperils all life on Earth. That taking those actions against these civilizations, as advanced as they are, thank God, over the past 70 years, 80 years since the 40s, when we started doing this with early electromagnetic directional energy weapons and scalar weapons, that they were not violent or hostile, because they would have cleaned our clock. And I tell people, folks like Grush and others who have said, we've downed these objects and then we've reverse engineered them. Well, here's a news flash. Yeah, we've reverse engineered them, taken the ET technologies and flipped it on them. Now imagine that being done to any nation state on planet Earth. Well, we would go and clean their clock, right? And we would bomb them into the Stone Age. So, I tell people who have all these fantasies about the hostile aliens, I said, dude, what is that comedian? I can't fix stupid. And then combine that with, we've reverse engineered them and now we're using it against the ETs. Now, under what society or group on planet Earth of humans, Homo sapiens, would allow that and not hit back? Well, they haven't. Because they are fundamentally very evolved socially, spiritually, and every other technologically.
Dr. Greer, I have found that when I'm advocating for this position, and especially for the position that the abductions are done by humans and they're masquerading as extraterrestrials.
I said my piece on it. It's like that's complete bullshit. Some of our ETs are doing it. I don't know about any humans that are doing it. I've heard of humanoid type humans being involved or in some abduction or peaceful abduction. But which I want to get to, I don't know if I will. It's late. Actually, and it's 9:19. Maybe I'll do it tomorrow instead. I'm going to change this RF. I don't know. This is a long one. This is a long one. And I don't see enough people on here to really warrant this. I really don't. So I think that I'll do this probably another time. This is from Jesse Michaels. I wanted to go over it. But anyways, I don't know. 9:21 Pacific, 12:30 Eastern. Let's see. I think I'll call this. Everyone have a good night. I think I might do a few things tomorrow, but it's not enough people. And this is Valentine's. This is Valentine's Day, so I don't know. But y'all take care. Have a good morning, good night, wherever you are, and peace out. Let me get some other stuff.